event, fatal four-way matchup for the AAA Mega Championship. It saw the polarizing figure of El Hijo del Vikingo defending his championship against three formidable foes. One being Dragon Lee, who Rey Mysterio anointed as the next star in Lucha Libre. Speaking of Rey Mysterio, he also had his son, Dirty Dominik Mysterio, the current reigning and defending Intercontinental Champion, as a part of that match. And the legend himself, El Grande Americano, also was challenging for said Triple A Mega Championship in a matchup that was high octane offense, high flying all around, and a little bit of technical ability there too. Seeing El Grande Americano putting on a little bit of a technical masterpiece there, and a match that saw a lot of interference. We saw members of the Judgment Day, which was, of course, to be expected. We saw members of the LWO, and as well as an appearance by the two masked wrestlers that have been hanging around El Grande Americano, who presumably the internet has assumed is Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. I am amongst that group that believes that, but we still have not seen who it really is. Anyway, fatal four-way action. What I loved about this main event was, one, all four competitors involved were at a high level tonight. But you know who else was at a high level? The audience. The audience brought it. They were invested in everybody in this matchup, whether it was positive or whether it was negative. Dominik and El Grande Americano had great ovations from the audience. These two are over like Rover at Mexico. And then you look at El Hijo del Vikingo, who is the designated babyface. He's the world champion for this promotion, but has received such a not even polarizing, he was just flat out booed every time he was on camera, whether it was during the backstage interview, whether it was during the backstage walkthrough, and all the way up until his entrance and the entirety of the matchup. He was being booed as if he had just kicked a dog in front of everybody. This guy was booed like he was the biggest villain in all of Mexico, but he's presented, or at least is intended to be presented, as their top babyface. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I am the expert on everything AAA Lucha Libre. I'm a fair weather fan. I'm a casual when it comes to AAA. I'm just now getting into it, being the crossover and the purchase by the WWE. It's now becoming more accessible as well, which for me is the key to all of pro wrestling, is that accessibility. If I don't have access to it, it's difficult to keep up with. But from what I understand, El Hijo del Vikingo has been going through this arc with the crowd, who has been slowly but surely, and especially nowadays, has turned on Vikingo. So when we did our prediction stream this past Thursday, I was sure that they were going to pull the trigger on Dirty Dominik Mysterio, have him become a double champion. He's already the Intercontinental Champion. What's one more championship? That's not going to hurt his legacy. Especially the work that Dominik has done in the last couple of years since joining the Judgment Day has done wonders for him. Astronomical. This guy gets it. Not only is it in his blood. I mean, you look at who his dad is. Eddie Guerrero. And then there's Rey Mysterio as well. Talk about his godfather, Conan, who just went into the Hall of Fame for AAA tonight as well. He gets the business. And you can tell, because of the way he progresses, the way he has improved in all facets of the sport, on the microphone, in the ring, presentation. This guy is going to be a world champion. It is not a matter of when, or it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they decide to pull this trigger. But Dominik Mysterio, for the majority of the matchup, I was very much in agreement with a lot of people in the audience that, hey, Dominik's going to go over. This man got the crowd chanting Peso Pluma throughout the match. But then we saw the interference by the Judgment Day, and I look over at San Fran, my brother, and I already knew, okay, he's not going over. He's not going over, because I just don't believe that they would have that interference so early in the matchup and have him win. It's one of those, bait and switch, where it's like they want you to think one thing, but turns out it's the other thing. And then you see the breakdown with all members of, the other groups, whether it's the LWO or El Grande Americano's crew. It was just a breakdown. And then it came finally, in the final moments of the matchup, Dominik grabs his mask, plants the metal, the piece of metal in his mask, and begins headbutting everybody in sight. And now I'm thinking, let's go. Come on now. We're about to crown the greatest Mysterio of all time as a AAA Mega Championship, a title that Rey has never held, a title that Eddie has never held. We're breaking barriers here for Dominik. He was going to do something that's never been done, and well on his way, he heads up to the top rope and delivers a beautiful frog splash. And out comes another masked individual to break up the pinfall. And immediately it's like, well, who else is here? Who else could interfere? And when I saw this individual deliver the forearm, that forearm looked particularly phenomenal. And then the mask was revealed. It was unveiled, and it would turn out to be one Alan Jones Styles. AJ Styles cost Dirty Dominik the matchup. El Hijo del Vikingo would then take advantage of this to a chorus of boos by the Mexico audience. And he would deliver his finish, the 630, and he would go over, successfully defending the Mega Championship. A great matchup from all that were involved. There was a little hiccup in the match, though, where El Grande Americano and Dominik deliver a crushing power bomb through the English announce table. A nice little turn of events there. They would throw El Hijo del Vikingo through the English announce table and basically wiped out the audio. So how ironic is it? We begin today's live stream with a little bit of audio difficulty the very same day that the English announce table lost their audio for some time during the main event, but it didn't take away from the action. The audience fully invested. They came alive. They really helped carry the matchup during that spell without the audio. And then obviously Corey Graves, Conan, and JBL. Big shout out to them as well. Very entertaining. I appreciated the knowledge that they had provided throughout the course of the broadcast. And just a good chemistry, I think, between Corey Graves and JBL. There were times where Conan, it was kind of shaky, but it's because he hasn't worked with these two regularly. But overall, a stellar job by all three men. I'm not a big fan of three-man commentary booths, but this one I thought was very entertaining. Just as that main event was, El Hijo del Vikingo successfully defends. We now move forward. Who will challenge him next? We now know that Dragon Lee and El Grande Americano are probably going to continue their feud. Tyler in the chat says AJ versus Dom. They're clearly not finished either. They had a good matchup at SummerSlam. I would expect them to have a rematch, perhaps in Paris. If not, probably on an episode of Raw. I don't think Dominik is due to drop that title just yet. I would like to see him hold it on for another several months. That way he can get more experience as a singles champion and compete against a diverse group of individuals. We've only seen him with AJ and Penta really in these last few months. I would kind of like to see a little bit more from Dominik and allow him to grow into a more prominent singles star and not really rely on the Judgment Day. Whenever it is time to break away from the Judgment Day, I want to see Dominik near the top of the card. He obviously won't win the World Championship the next day after leaving Judgment Day, but I do want to see him take those proper steps that will lead him to that. With that being said, though, I personally think it was the wrong call. I think they should have capitalized on Dominik, have him win the championship. The crowd wanted it. The crowd also wanted El Grande Americano to win, I believe. I think they were very firmly behind him. A great rendition during his entrance as well. But Dominik, I just felt like it would have been perfect, to win it in his first matchup in AAA. Rey is there, Conan's there. I think the reports saying that their family was there as well. Angie and Aaliyah, naturally, being that Rey and Dominik are there. It would have been a great moment, I thought. And maybe it's one of those things where you make the audience wait. You want them to keep wanting and wanting, similar to how they did it with Joe Hendry and TNA, and apparently what they're doing with Mike Santana now, where you just make the audience just wait a little bit longer, really have them on the edge of their seats, and then finally give the payoff so that it is this exhale of emotions where it's like, yes, finally. That's what I think they're gonna go with. Dominik, though, I would have gone with him, but I'm not the booker. I'm just a fan. In the chat here, Robert says, nice short on Logan Paul. How about another one? Do you remember when Dom was a horrible baby face? He is the most improved ever in the last 10 years. Robert, this is a great point. Dominik Mysterio, and I talked about Dominik on a TikTok that I had made a couple days ago. It was like the 7 wrestler theories, where it was like, who's the wrestler that helped, you fell in love with wrestling because of, who was the one you missed the most, who's your new favorite. Dominik falls in line with like my new favorite. And I don't mean like he's my favorite, but I just mean like someone that is relatively new. Although you could argue he's been in the business for like 20 plus years. Dominik, what I love about his work, it has become contrastly different than Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio is arguably the greatest babyface of all time because he has that innate ability to develop a connection with the crowd to where we have become invested in him overcoming the odds again and again and again. Another important aspect of Rey Mysterio's work is the mask. Not only does he come off as a superhero, but the mask limits the facial expressions that he gives to the audience. That's a big indicator for pro wrestling. Facial expressions, being able to sell what is transpiring in that ring. And when you put a barrier like a mask on, it can become a little bit of a disruptor in that aspect of the storytelling. But Rey, again, through body language, can still get over with the audience. You strip everything away from Rey Mysterio and you have Dominik. Dominik is not the smallest. He doesn't have a mask. He's not this great baby face. You guys remember when he first came in 2020, had that feud with Seth Rollins, a little bit shaky. They put him in a tag team with Rey Mysterio to help give him that little bit of a babyface rub. People were not buying it. People were not fans of Dominik. They didn't believe in Dominik. They thought this is another Nepo baby coming into pro wrestling because of who his dad is. But then that all changed. That all changed in the fall of 2022 when he turned on Rey and he delivered a hellacious clothesline that would feel very similar to JBL when he had his feud with Rey and Eddie way back when. And since then, that heel turn was the greatest thing to have happened to Dominik. It helped develop a new attitude for Dominik where he no longer had to feel like he was in the shadow of Rey Mysterio. He was now forming his own character. And it also helped that he had a built-in story with Eddie Guerrero. 2005, the custody of Dominik ladder match, one of my favorite matches of all time, a guilty pleasure viewing if ever was one. But with Dominik, already have a built-in feud for life against Rey Mysterio. Having him join the Judgment Day, becoming influenced by Rhea Ripley, and having his own relationship like Chyna and Eddie, but now with Rhea and Dom. He became more comfortable on the microphone. You could see that you surrounded him with talent like Rhea, like Finn, Damian Priest, veterans like Carlito and R-Truth. He began to grow into his own man, where now it's like the fans are begging to see more of Dominik. He's no longer just a full-on heel. People are cheering this guy. Fast forward all the way to WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium. He wins the Intercontinental Championship by defeating 4 solid stars in Penta, Finn Balor, and Braun Breaker. And the crowd ate it up. They ate it up. Dominik was able to relish that moment. I loved it. Loved it for him. To see the growth of Dominik these last 20 years, again, rewarding. Rewarding not only for him because of the work that he put in, training, becoming who he is, despite who his father is, but rewarding for us as fans because I can remember 20 years ago when this small little kid, same age as me, with bleached hair, coming out with his dad Rey Mysterio, and with the squeakiest of voice, asking him, "Is it true, Dad? Is it really true?" when confronted by Eddie Guerrero, and how he is his father. And now seeing who he has become today. I'm a big fan of Dominik. I want to see him succeed.